Go on and lift the lid off your toilet tank. Right now, while we talk. Set it down flat and look inside for a second. That water, those few plastic parts, that little rubber flap down at the bottom. That is the whole machine. That is everything that keeps your toilet running when it shouldn't. And everything you need to fix it is sitting right there in front of you. No mystery, no special tools. My Uncle Ray showed me the inside of a tank when I was a kid, and he said something I never forgot. He said a toilet only has about 5 moving parts, and anybody who can read a clock can fix every one of them. He was right. I've been doing this work for 30 years, and I have never once needed to call somebody smarter than me to fix a running toilet. Neither do you, so keep that lid off. We are going to walk through this together, part by part, top of the tank down to the bottom. And by the time we're done, you'll know which piece is costing you money and how to stop it. Most of the time, it's a fix that costs less than a sandwich. Now let me tell you why this matters. Because a running toilet is a sneaky little thief. It doesn't flood your floor, it just runs, quiet and steady, sending clean water straight down the drain all day and all night while you sleep. I've seen a toilet with a bad flapper waste more than 100 gallons in a single day. Between you and me, that shows up on your water bill like a stranger moved into your house and started taking a shower every hour. Folks call me because their bill doubled and they can't figure out why. And 9 times out of 10, it's the toilet down the hall doing it quietly. So here's the good news. You do not need me. You need about 10 minutes and maybe $5. We're going to go through 8 parts that make a toilet run, in the order I'd check them myself, from the easy stuff up front down to the one at number 6 that most people never even think to look at. And I'm holding a bonus tip for the very end, the one I give every customer who's tired of chasing this thing part by part. So stick with me. Before we touch a single part, let me teach you how to read your toilet, because it'll tell you what's wrong if you slow down and pay attention. First, listen. A steady hiss, like a slow leak in a tire, means water's still coming in through the fill valve when it shouldn't. A soft trickle means water's going out somewhere it shouldn't, past the flapper or down the overflow. Second, look. Watch the bowl for a minute. If you see a thin ribbon of water running down the back of the bowl, or little ripples when nobody's flushed, water's sneaking through. Third, the phantom flush. If your toilet turns itself on for a few seconds with nobody near it, that's the tank quietly losing water and topping itself back up. Learn those 3 tells and you're already halfway to the fix. Now let's go find your part. 1. The flapper, your prime suspect. Number 1, and this is the big one, is the flapper. If your toilet's running, this is your prime suspect, and it's guilty about half the time. Let me tell you what it is. Look down at the bottom of your tank. You'll see a rubber piece, usually red or black, sitting over a big opening in the floor. That opening dumps water into the bowl when you flush, and the flapper is the plug. When you push the handle, it lifts up and lets the water rush through. Then it's supposed to drop back down and seal that hole tight so the tank can refill and sit still. Simple as a stopper in a bathtub. Here's what goes wrong. That rubber sits in water its whole life, and over a few years it gets stiff or slimy or warped, and it stops sealing. So water sneaks past it, into the bowl, in a slow, steady trickle. The tank drops, the fill valve kicks on to top it off, and around it goes. That's your running toilet. Now here's how you know for sure, and this is a trick my Uncle Ray swore by. Drop a few drops of food coloring in the tank water and don't flush. Walk away for 15 minutes. Come back and look in the bowl. If you see color in the bowl, your flapper is leaking, plain and simple, because that water only got there one way. Now the fix. Shut off the water at the little valve on the wall behind the toilet, clockwise till it stops. Flush to empty the tank. The old flapper unhooks, slips off 2 pegs on the sides, and unclips the chain. Take it to the hardware store, hold it up, and buy the one that matches. $3 to $5. Snap the new one on, hook the chain, turn the water back on. Between you and me, that is a $5 part standing between you and a $150 plumber visit. 2. The chain. Number 2 is the chain, and I love this one because it might be the cheapest fix in the whole house. It costs you nothing. Look at that flapper again and follow the little chain running from it up to the flush handle arm. That chain is what pulls the flapper open when you push the handle, and it's got a Goldilocks problem. It can't be too long, and it can't be too short. If the chain is too long, it pools up down there and slides under the flapper and props it open just a hair, so it never seals. Water runs. If the chain is too short, it holds the flapper up off its seat, and it can't close all the way. Water runs. Either way, the fix is free. You just want a little slack, about ½ inch of play, when the flapper's shut. If it's too long, move the clip up a link or two, or snip off the extra. If it's too short, let out a link. And check that the chain isn't kinked or wrapped around itself, because that'll hold the flapper up too. I've been called out to a running toilet, walked in, lifted the lid, unhooked one link of chain, and walked back out. That's how simple this one can be. So before you buy a single part, check your chain. Trader 3. The fill valve. Number 3 is the fill valve, and this is the one you can actually hear. If your toilet makes that steady hiss, or if it randomly turns itself on for a few seconds in the middle of the night when nobody's touched it, this is your part. Look on the left side of the tank. You'll see a tall plastic tower with a cap on top and a thin tube running off it. That's the fill valve. Its job is to refill the tank after every flush and shut off clean when the water's back up to the right level. When it goes bad, it doesn't shut off all the way, so it keeps letting a little water in. And to keep the tank from overflowing, that water runs down the overflow tube and into the bowl. Quiet, steady, wasteful. That's your hiss. Now, a lot of folks hear that and think they need a whole new toilet. You don't. A fill valve is a $10 to $15 part and a 15-minute job. Shut the water off at the wall, flush to drain the tank, and sponge out the last bit. There's a plastic nut underneath the tank where the fill valve pokes through. Unscrew that by hand, disconnect the little supply line, and the whole tower lifts right out. Drop the new one in, tighten that nut back up hand tight, and I mean hand tight. Don't go grabbing a wrench and cranking on plastic or you'll crack it. Ask me how I know. Reconnect, turn the water on, and watch it fill and shut off nice and clean. No more hiss. That right there just saved you a service call. Now, before we get into the parts, most folks skip right over. Let me say one quick thing. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, do me a small favor and subscribe to the Vintage Pipefitter. It's free, it takes a second, and it means the next time something in your house starts acting up, a plain and honest walkthrough is waiting for you. That's all I do here. Real repairs that save you real money. Now let's get back to your tank. 4. The float and water level. Number 4 is the float, and this one ties right into what we just talked about. The float is the part that tells the fill valve when to stop. On the newer valves, it's a little cup that rides up and down the tower. On the older ones, it's a ball on the end of a metal arm, floating on top of the water. Either way, as the tank fills, the float rises, and when it gets to the top, it shuts the water off. Here's the trouble. If that float is set too high, the water level in your tank rises up past where it should and spills over into the overflow tube and trickles down into the bowl. Forever. So your toilet runs, not because anything's broken, but because it's set wrong. And this one right here is where that listen and look I taught you earlier pays off, because a float set too high sounds exactly like a fill valve going bad. Same trickle. So check your water level before you go buying parts. The fix costs nothing. You want the water in your tank to sit about an inch below the top of that overflow tube. Look for the line. Most tanks have a little mark molded right into them. If your water's above it, lower your float. On the cup style, there's a little clip or a screw on a rod you pinch and slide down. On the old ball style, there's a screw where the arm meets the valve, or you can gently bend the arm down. Just a hair. Adjust it, flush, watch where it settles, and adjust again till it sits right. No parts, no store, no plumber. Just a 2-minute tune-up. 5. The overflow tube. Number 5 is the overflow tube itself, and this is where a running toilet gets sneaky on you. That overflow tube is the open pipe standing straight up in the middle of your tank, the one the water spills into if things get too high. It's a safety valve, really. It's there so that if your fill valve ever fails wide open, the water goes down the tube and into the bowl instead of flooding your bathroom floor. Good design. But 2 things go wrong with it. 1, if your water level is set too high, like we just covered, it pours down that tube non-stop, and you'll hear a faint trickle if you put your ear close. 2, and this is the sneaky part, the tube itself can crack, especially down low where you can't see it, or the little cap on top can come loose. When that happens, water pours into it below the normal line and just keeps running. And here's what makes it a devil to catch. You can set your float perfect, water sitting right where it should, and the thing still won't quit, because the leak is happening under the water line where your eye never goes. Here's how you check it. Get your water level set right first, an inch below the top of the tube. If it's still running down that tube, run your fingers down the outside of it and feel for a crack or a wet seam. If the tube's cracked, don't panic and do not call anybody. That tube is part of what we call the flush valve, the whole assembly the flapper sits on. And I'm going to show you that exact part next, because it leads us right into number 6, the one almost nobody thinks to check. 2. The flush valve seat. Number 6 is the flush valve seat, and I promised you this is the one most people never even think about. So pay attention, because when the flapper's new and the chain's right and the float's set and the thing still runs, this is almost always your answer. Remember that big opening in the floor of the tank, the one the flapper drops down onto. The rim around that opening is called the seat. It's the surface the rubber flapper presses against to make it seal. And here's what folks miss. You can put a brand new flapper on a bad seat, and it will still leak, because the flapper's only as good as the surface it lands on. Over the years, that seat gets rough. Minerals build up on it. It pits. It grows a little crusty ridge, and the flapper just can't get a clean seal anymore. Run your finger around that rim. If it feels gritty or rough or scaled instead of smooth, that's your leak. Now you've got 2 ways to go. The easy way, if the damage is light, is a little emery cloth or fine sandpaper. Shut the water off, drain the tank, and gently smooth that seat down till it's clean and even. Many a time that alone fixes it. And once you've smoothed it, do that food coloring test one more time to be sure. If the color stays put in the tank this go around, you've finally got yourself a clean seal. If the seat's really pitted, The honest fix is to replace the whole flush valve, seat, and overflow tube together, since they're one piece. That's a bigger job. You have to pull the tank off the bowl to get at the big nut underneath, but it's still a $20 part and an afternoon, not a plumber. Between you and me, most folks never get this far because it's usually one of the first 5. But when you're truly stumped, this is the part hiding in plain sight. 7. The refill tube. Number 7 is the little refill tube, and this is a quiet troublemaker that fools even some handymen. See that thin, flexible tube running off the top of the fill valve over to the overflow tube? Its job is to squirt a little water down into the overflow during the refill, to put some water back in the bowl after a flush. Small job, but it matters. Here's what goes wrong. If somebody shoved that little tube way down inside the overflow tube, down below the water line, it can start to siphon. And once it siphons, it'll quietly pull water out of your tank and down the drain, and your fill valve just keeps running to keep up. It's a slow, steady leak with no sound and no dripping, and you'd never guess it. The fix takes 10 seconds. That little tube should clip to the top rim of the overflow tube and squirt down into it from above, never buried down inside it. There's usually a little plastic clip to hold it in place. Pull it up so the end sits well above the water line, clip it on, and you're done. No parts. Nothing to buy. Just pull it up out of the water. I've seen this one waste water for months in a house where somebody swapped a fill valve and pushed that tube down too far without knowing better. Now you know better. 8. The flush handle. Number 8, the last part on our list, is the flush handle and the arm it's bolted to. Most folks never suspect the handle, because it lives outside the tank and looks like it just does one simple thing. But that handle connects to a metal or plastic arm inside the tank, and that arm is what the chain hooks onto. 2 things go wrong here. First, that handle and arm can corrode, especially the metal ones in hard water country. They get stiff and crusty, and instead of dropping back down clean after a flush, the arm hangs up halfway, and if the arm stays up, the chain stays tight, and the flapper never fully seats. Water runs. Second, the mounting nut behind the handle can work loose over time, and a loose handle sits at a cockeyed angle that holds the arm up. Here's your check. Push the handle and let go, and watch that arm inside the tank. It should drop right back down, quick and loose, every single time. If it sticks or moves slow, that's your problem. The fix is cheap either way. A new flush handle and arm is a $5 to $8 part, and it swaps out with the one nut behind the tank wall. That nut, by the way, is what we call reverse threaded, so it loosens the opposite way from normal, clockwise, to loosen. Ask me how many folks have stood there cranking it the wrong way, me included the first time around. Tighten the new one snug, hook your chain, and you're back in business. Now here's the bonus tip I promised you, the one I give every customer who's tired of playing whack-a-mole with one part at a time. If your toilet's more than 10 or 15 years old and you've fixed one thing and then another thing started up a month later, do yourself a favor and stop chasing it. Go buy a complete toilet tank repair kit. It's one box, it's got a new flapper, a new fill valve, and a new flush valve all together, and it runs you about $20. You shut the water off one time, you pull the tank off one time, and you rebuild the whole works in about half an hour. Everything inside that tank comes out fresh and new, and you will not touch that toilet again for another 15 years. And whatever you swap in there, remember 2 things I tell everybody. Shut the water off at that wall valve before you start, every time, so you're working in a dry tank and not fighting a flood. And when you snug those plastic nuts down, do it by hand and stop. Never reach for a wrench on plastic. Ask me how many cracked tanks I've hauled out for a fella who just wanted it good and tight. That's the move when you're done guessing. One kit, one afternoon, $20, and the whole thing is like new. A plumber would charge you a couple hundred to do that exact same job, and he'd buy the same box off the same shelf you would. Now, you're the one who knows that. I'm glad you stuck with me all the way to the end. Every week here on the Vintage Pipefitter, I walk you through another real repair. The kind of know-how that takes years on the job to learn and a few honest minutes for me to hand you for free. Subscribe so it's right here, waiting for the day something breaks, and go enjoy a nice, quiet tank tonight.